Hey, X.
Hello, hello.
Hey, you might want to check back in with our friends in Florida. They've come around to your view. Took a lot of
Okay,
doing. Herding
okay.
cats, bro. Herding cats.
Yeah. I am going to add some adjustments here. Play the sound when people enter. Um, oh, show the controls.
Yeah, this thing's gonna beat the fuck out of us going down I-5 South. After you go through this, you gotta get out of this lane.
If everybody could
It's like literally
mute
turn back the car
themselves,
off that.
please. Have everybody mute themselves, if you don't mind. Going to make sure we allow everybody in. It's 1 p.m., so this is the official start. Just going to give a couple more moments to admit everyone. So just so you all know, this is being live streamed and recorded onto YouTube. And if everybody could make sure that they stay muted, and we'll do a question and answer session at the end. And I'll make plenty of time for that. My hope is that we get a good amount of question and answer, because there's a lot that I'm going to cover that has to do with, like I said, the crypto hype and the reality of the situation. Kind of give you, I'm going to pretend that you're newcomers to the industry as a whole. I'm going to explain what blockchain is. I'm going to explain why it's important. I'm going to explain what its implications are and its final use case. And then we're going to do as much as we can to answer all of your questions. I'm hoping that this doesn't go longer than an hour. My initial presentation might be 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30, and then we'll go into a question and answer. And it looks like people are going to be joining. Let me see if there's. All right, cool. Then we're going to go ahead and begin. Thank you for being here, first of all, for taking time out of your day to learn about cryptocurrencies, and for doing so with myself. I find myself to be, let me admit some more people. Okay. I've been in the industry since the very beginning. A little bit about me, for those of you who are not familiar, in my late teens, I helped start a home health agency, family here in Florida. And we had 500 and some. I did all of the policies, being trained to be an operator of a large company at a young age, and have hands-on experience running corporations. We did very well with that company, and I kind of semi-retired in my mid-20s. I'm just going to keep admitting everybody here. And then invested in real estate and invested in cryptocurrency and in gold, and I did really well with all of that. And we were teaching homesteading and basically wilderness skills and homesteading skills and herbalism and all of these like earthen skills up in the mountains of Western North Carolina. And we had a lot of people living on our property, like 13 people at any given time, and we were paying them, and then they were paying rent, and it was like this micro economy. And I was like, and this was circa 2010, 11, 12. And I was like, we need some kind of currency, and way to govern this, right? Because sitting in and coming to consensus and sitting in a consensus circle, for hours. If any of you have work doing consensus work and mediation, that can take forever. So I was like, how can we speed that up without having to listen to Sally talk about her cats and every personal issue she has, and staying focused and on track and maintaining respect for everybody's time and attention, and also being able to pay and receive reciprocal reciprocity financially. And so I started looking at things like time dollars, Ithaca dollars, or Ithaca cash, time dollars, and various complementary currencies, as they are called. And then that got me into Bitcoin in 2011, 12. I saw it and I kept seeing it, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. But, it didn't hit me until late 2013. And I said, oh my, when I looked into the code and how the thing is actually built and why and what the purposes are, I said, oh my God, this isn't just a currency. This is actually a means by which we can do real governance. So I got very much into it, went all in, and did really well with that. And I became one of the first innovators in the space circa early 2014, when Bitcoin was still under $100, and architected the first multi-asset backed stable price cryptocurrency, which means you have gold backed dollars and all of these different mechanisms to have asset backing, which creates a volatile price, but not so volatile as a purely speculative instrument like crypto or Bitcoin or whatever. So what we did is I put together a basket, if you will, of various commodities, currencies, land, and said, okay, all of these things on their own will fluctuate in price, but we put them all together in a basket, it keeps the price relatively stable. This got me many accolades, and people were like, wow, this is really incredible. The chief architect of the Euro's convergence and exchange mechanisms, Bernard Lietaer, before he passed away, and he was like the grandmaster of crypto, of currency design. His people found me, and we ended up working together. He was very excited because he had designed the same kind of concept, but to institutionalize at governmental level and country level, like the BRICS nations, right? He was doing works with them to create a currency, a digital currency, that would be stable price and could become the world's reserve currency. And when he saw what we were doing, what I was doing, he was like, this is the future. You're working from the bottom up and I've been working from the top down. Let's work together. Can I work with you? And I said 100%. And so when Bernard came to join us, that really kicked up my profile a whole lot, because to be working with the guy who created the currency that hundreds of millions of people are using meant something. And so I was invited to speak at Oxford, the World Economic Forum. I did consultation with governments, and then I negotiated the first blockchain for a country back in early 2015. And our investors at the time were like, you're the only person that's actually, this was at a time, mind you, when Ethereum had just started. It wasn't even launched, right? And I'm already out there talking with governments about how to implement their blockchain strategy and why an open source network is not the best solution. Because if you are a government or an institution or a corporation, and I've told this to lots of companies, including Kodak and others, that if you're a corporation, you do not want an open chain like Ethereum or Bitcoin even, right? To store data on or whatever, because they have liabilities, they have exposure that they can't control the exposure if they're letting anybody use their system. Somebody could come in and do something that would break their system. Or in the case of Bitcoin, it's not as centralized or decentralized as everybody says. And I'll get into why, just giving sort of a background on why you should listen to me in the first place. Because whenever I gave talks, I told people the reality. I said, everybody's hyped about the decentralized nature of cryptocurrency and all of these things. But that all that does is create destabilization when it's totally decentralized. And what I mean by that is there is no responsible parties. So you say, oh, it's just the code and we're trusting the code. But there really is a responsible party if you think about it, because the people who code the Bitcoin blockchain, there's 6 of them, I think still, and they all work for the same company. And if they decide to change the code or fork the code in the way that Ethereum did, when it got hacked for $60 million in the DAO, they're just like, we'll just erase that from history and start a new fork right before that happened. What that means is that somebody else has control of your ecosystem, and it could be just a few people. So how decentralized is that, right? So, and then there's the idea of a 51% attack on the mining side, right? If 51% of the miners decide that they're going to fork Bitcoin, there's really nothing anybody can do to stop them. So it says decentralization, and yes, it's harder to get a bunch of people to agree to do something like that. It's not in their best interest, whatever. It's still a possibility. So when I talk with the governments, I point those things out. And in my talks, I pointed those things out. So I wasn't very popular with the maximalists and all the people who are like, Bitcoin is the solution for the future. It's like, no, Bitcoin is the Model T to the car, right? So this is a little bit of my history and a little bit of the insight into what we're going to talk about, right? The hype versus the reality. So let's just go into what a blockchain is. There's 2 ways that I describe it. The first way is that gold mine. You find a gold mine in the ground, you assay it, you do ground penetrating radar, and you say, oh, look, there's a couple billion pieces or ounces of gold in there. And you say, great, instead of digging it up, I'm going to put a cage on the front door and get a key, and then I'm going to sell the key, right? So The gold on the ground is the blockchain. It's where you can store data, and you put a cage on the front door, and you put a little box in there with a ledger that you can write information on. That's essentially what a blockchain is. It's like a store of value, input and read data. And then what you turn around and sell, the key, the access to that, is essentially what everybody's calling a Bitcoin. Another way to think about it is so you can go and I can sell you the key to that gold, and you can go write your information on it and leave a record that this belongs to so-and-so, and then you sell that key, and now it records that it's gone to so-and-so. And on blockchains now, you can even store data. You could put pictures, like a time capsule, right? And it shows when the information was inputted and what. You can actually create really unique chain of custody examples and contracts around that. And that's what they call level 1 blockchains. But the other example that I use for a blockchain is Google Drive. If anybody's ever used a Google Drive, you can make a change on the ledger or on the Google Doc or the Google Sheet or whatever, and everybody sees it at the same time. But that Google Drive information is stored on Google centralized servers. They might have backups, but if it's theirs for all intents and purposes, you're just getting to use their data, right, in exchange for transparency, and they get to see everything you're doing. Now, imagine if instead of being housed on Google's centralized servers, all of that information is housed on your computer, the other people who have access to that file's computer. So there's holographic representation of it. If my computer falls, your computer still has all the data. And then what ends up happening is that every time I make a change in there, each person on the network's computer registers that change at the same time, and they all do the work. So it's using computational power to record the transfer of work, or the ledger of work, the input of work or data. So it's a decentralized Google Drive in essence. And everybody who has a complete instance of that data set, that file, that doc, whatever, in this case, the blockchain, is what's called a node. And they run an entire network. And it takes a lot of computational power to keep up with every transaction that's going on. And so to this degree, those who run the nodes have, in essence, control of the network. The idea is that to decentralize it and put it in a lot of people's hands protects the system. And it does to a really good degree. But it also slows down the system, because then every computer has to register it. So now when I send you, now we're talking about, using one of those keys and sending the blockchain or sending the Bitcoin, right? I send you a Bitcoin, and then every computer or every node that is watching that blockchain, that has an instance, a complete instance of the whole blockchain on it, which takes a lot of gigs of data and then processing power, has to register that it happens. And generally what happens is after 2 or 3, sometimes 5 computers ping and say, oh, I got it, you did this thing. That's generally when the coin is sent or the transaction goes through, because then it's validated by at least X number of witnesses that record the transaction. What this does is it slows down the transactional capability of any particular blockchain. And so the struggle that's been going on is, oh, we need to actually have centralization. Oh, but we have this decentralized system. The whole blockchain is about decentralization. So in the early days, the way that this was solved was by a company by the name of Ripple. They were like, decentralization is great and all, but the real value is these transactional tokens that can't be forged. So they just said, we'll take that whole decentralization thing and just throw it out the window and have our own company and have like a couple computers running the nodes. And when I say a couple, a couple hundred, maybe 1,000, who knows, but it's all within their control, and they can turn it off and on as they please. So you've got that, again, that point of failure, that's centralized control system. Now, there's a balance that should be struck in this whole equation that they really aren't addressing. But again, I want to keep this very top level for you all to begin with, because I'm assuming that nobody here has any cryptocurrency experience. And I'm kind of just explaining the real mechanisms behind it. And then also to give you, in case you're like an investor or you want to speculate in the field, to give you some real hardcore facts so that you understand what you're messing with, right? In the current stock exchange, let's say, there are safeguards and controls to prevent speculation, to prevent, it's what they call regulation. It's to prevent snake oil salesmen from selling BS to the market, taking advantage of people in their good nature and they're wanting to strive and succeed for themselves. So that's why the SEC was created, and what it's ended up becoming is a mechanism by which, if you don't already have lots of money, you can't have the opportunity to make lots of money. So instead of going and examining everybody really, they've just gone in and said, if you don't have enough money, you can't take part in these speculative, investments, private security offerings and such. And what that's done is sort of kept the game as it's been for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. Now, the whole purpose of the libertarian, hey, we're going to create our own money system, was to dismantle that system of control. That was the whole zeitgeist of Bitcoin and blockchain in the early days. Everything from the cypherpunks and the people who were creating this mechanism, Satoshi and the people who were involved with that, so that we could dismantle the systems of control on the planet, because it has created imbalance and nepotism and all of these things where centralized systems of control can then just sit on the entire body populace. And if you're not smart enough or clever enough or backhanded enough to make it, then tough. You stay in the slave class. That was the zeitgeist of the purpose why Bitcoin was created, was to put the power of money making back in the hands of the people. Since then, it then became a mechanism to raise lots of money, ridiculous amounts of speculative money, right? And a lot of people have. Then you had, after Bitcoin, you had Litecoin, then Ethereum came and said, you know what? We don't just need to have a digital store of value. You can actually put data in there and make contracts and make the blockchain programmable. And Ethereum was the first one to create what's called a Turing complete blockchain, meaning you could program it to do things other than just transact with. You could actually store data on it. You could actually create contracts where you create a complex system of what are called smart contracts. And this is what all level 1 crypto systems are. They're a set of code that allows you to create contracts on a blockchain utilizing a distributed ledger. So something like Ethereum comes along, or Cardano, or Solana, or HBAR, and they let you program contracts. So if I come to you and I say, hey, I need my lawn cut, and I'll put this coin in escrow, and once you cut the lawn and you send me a picture and I approve it, then the money that I put in escrow goes to you automatically. Why is that important? We could just trade, right? Well, yes. But if you think about what that function is, it can be done with a lot of parameters, to the point where you could have a fleet of taxis, let's say, that are all owned on a smart contract layer 1 Ethereum type blockchain, that the company owns itself. There's nobody that's culpable or responsible. It's essentially a robot company where there's X amount of coins in the wallet for that company, and you can write smart contracts where if it makes 20% more, then automatically a new vehicle will be purchased from this company. The wallet will send the right amount of coins to that company to get the car, and that adds another car to the fleet. And that when you sit in the car, if you're a membership of that DAO, which we'll get into in a second, but a decentralized autonomous corporation or organization, it automatically charges your wallet because it reads through an NFC chip that you're in the vehicle, and you can say where you want to go. You can, what I'm basically getting at is, with a Turing complete blockchain, you can automate corporations, you can automate nations with complex enough code and detailed enough algorithms. You can literally get rid of the heads of companies, bankers. You can, the limits of that are astounding, and we haven't even begun to explore that. There are law firms that are already implementing these decentralized autonomous corporations or processes in their functioning, right? And this is what unlocks the true potential of a blockchain. But there are still people that are just speculating on the coins, and you might be one of those, and that's totally cool. Because what that's doing is it's actually taking your life force and attention into an industry that is growing. And if anybody says like blockchain's gone, or it's pointless, or it's a bubble, or any of these things, they really don't know or understand their place in society, their place in economics, or how innovation works. I don't want to speculate onto why, but basically, blockchain is here to stay. Cryptocurrency is here to stay, unless all of the electricity on the planet goes away. And in that case, then you're going to have bigger worries than your digital currencies on a wallet somewhere. Because right now, increasingly, we find that governments are becoming more predatory and more exquisitely good at harvesting from their citizenry, right? In the United States, they've just either they passed it or are trying to pass it that they can, anything over $600 in your bank account, that they get to watch all of it, right? Now, cryptocurrency prevents that. It puts the power back in the hands of the people for their finances, for their economy, and it distributes and decentralizes that whole process from the centralized banking system that has taken over the planet to give us actually a shot at being able to be self-determining again. Because if you sequester all of the power into a small group of people, what is the phrase? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so we're watching that play out on a global level. So cryptocurrency is the solution to that. And just for that reason alone, it will never disappear. Now, governments will be able to come in and regulate because currently the whole market is unregulated. Somebody could come up with a scam coin. In fact, we watched this past year, people coming up with Shiba Inu. I'm not saying that it's a scam coin or any of these, but the Safe Moon, Safe Rune, Safe Doge, Safe Elon Moon, like all of these like meme coins cost almost nothing to put them together. Like takes a good team, maybe, like a good budget, and you can have a coin, right? And then they pump it, and then everybody buys in, and then when the price goes up from $0 to like a dollar, they sell all of theirs to the market where they've created all this hype. And then what they're doing is essentially stealing from the public. And then what you end up having is like a lot of degradation in quality in the ecosystem and a lot of scams. And then or long cons, even like I could point out a couple, but this is public and I don't want to, and I know some of those people. So you're looking for cryptocurrencies to involve yourself in, and without any investment advice, I can say that I know people who have top performing coins at the beginning of the year, put in a couple $1,000s, and by the end of the year have become a millionaire. And they go to the top 10 and they just spread it, and they don't care, right? They don't look, they make sure that they're not scams. They make sure that they have a good team. They make sure that they have track record and are doing real projects in the world and are public, right? That everybody knows who they are, and that it becomes harder. Like if you can't see who the CEO is or who the coders are, like I would stay away personally. In the early days, that was actually a good thing because nobody knew how the US government or the SEC was going to respond. But the ones that have succeeded, if you look at the ones who have succeeded since then, they're the ones that everybody knew who they were, right? Unless it's a coin like, Pirate Coin or R, or but even like Monero and stuff, you know who their leadership is for the most part. But their specific coin is for privacy. So like with Bitcoin right now, you can actually track a Bitcoin from its inception to every wallet it's gone to. You might not know who owns the wallet, but you can track it. I was doing some large scale brokering for a couple $100 million of Bitcoin back and forth for a number of years. And I saw everything in that industry, and there's scams at that highest level. You wouldn't even know it unless you were witnessing it. But once the banks started getting involved to buy up as much as they could to take it off of the market, to prevent the amount of damage that blockchain and Bitcoin has done to the banking world, they were literally just trying to buy up as much as they could so that nobody had access to it because they wanted to kill it and they couldn't. And they were buying hundreds of millions of dollars worth. But they had to do forensic audits on every coin to see where they were. And if it ever went through Silk Road, right, which is for those of you who don't know, was a dark web sort of website. It wasn't dark web necessarily, but you'd go to Silk Road and you could buy anything. It was a free market, like a real free market where you could buy bad things, right? Drugs and other things. I've never been, so I actually don't know what's available on there, but you could get, drugs anonymously shipped to your house, right? Using Bitcoin. Now they can actually track all those Bitcoin, which is, made some people who thought this was this anonymous magic internet money. Now it's a little more serious, right? So a couple points there. It's an unregulated market, and there are few people who have lots and lots and lots of them. And if they understand and know each other, which I know they do, they can determine which way the market goes. They can all say together, and they have, we're going to go and sell off a whole bunch and drop the market. They do. And then they're like, okay, and then we're going to buy back at this position. Because what they're doing is what central bankers and all of these systems of institutionalized corruption have done. It's just their new money doing it, right? And so there very much is like the crypto mafias, and they're not necessarily bad people. I'm just using the word mafia as a moniker to state that they've come together and said, we own the system. We have all of the power in it, so we can decide which way the market's going to go. So just so long as you understand these factors, if you're getting into the crypto game, you're at least knowledgeable about what's really going on. That being said, then you're more knowledgeable about what's really going on, and you can look for specific markers, and you can play intelligently amongst the field of other actors, right? And so that way you're being responsible with your decisions, in the sense that you're not walking into it starry-eyed and saying, oh, this is all just rainbows and kittens and butterflies. It's like there is some dastardly things that go on. In fact, the whole cryptocurrency market, you can say, was founded and supported in the same way that the internet was for porn and for illicit activities, right? The best way to earn money, or it was. These are the realities. But so long as you understand those realities, then you know, okay, that's the gauge of what's good and what's bad. I now can better gauge the projects that I'm looking at to determine whether they're good or they're bad, whether they're going to be supported or not, and whether they're going to be profitable for myself or not, right? So when I look at a project, so now that's sort of like the overview with a lot of detailed analysis of the industry as a whole and what to watch out for, and you know, not the starry-eyed sort of perspective of it, but a very grounded and realistic perspective. Like there's some serious risk, right? For example, I talked about Ethereum's DAO and how they decided to fork the whole thing as an example of how not decentralized a lot of these systems are. What happened there is they created a DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization, or a decentralized autonomous corporation, which is what Firon is. It's actually a DANK, a decentralized autonomous bank. That everybody's part owner of. And if you're an accredited investor and you want to learn more, come and talk to me. This isn't a pitch about Firon. I'm really just talking about the cryptocurrency space as a whole, and doing so in a sober manner, right? So Ethereum created this DAO, or some members of the Ethereum organization, let's say, created a decentralized autonomous organization that you could put money in, and that people would vote, and it would automatically invest in the things that people voted on. They would automatically, like, it had smart contracts built so that we all put our money in together, and then it automatically pays out to others that are looking to build projects. They had this process, which, by the way, is what it does. It just takes out the code of it and makes the code function for the people. So what happened was somebody who knew the system hacked it. People had put like $60 million in it. And what had happened in the early days is, like, there were all these new young crypto millionaires, and they wanted to keep rolling. They wanted to keep making more money. So they couldn't get back into the fiat system without having the gain. So they just kept investing in crypto and new crypto projects. And it sort of became a self-fulfilling money-making machine. But it was literally siphoning money from the fiat market. And what I mean is, you'd make, like, let's say you invested early in Bitcoin and you made like a couple million. You're not going to take that out and put it into dollars, because then you're going to have to lose all of it. So you're going to take that and keep putting it into new cryptos. So they would roll new projects out. People would roll new projects out to feed this market, right? And that's Ethereum. And by the way, the whole DAO, I was the guy who really began speaking about DAOs in 2014, before the technology was even capable of it. And informing people, like, this is how we build the future, a self-governing future where humanity is free and decentralized, but with accountability, right? And so Ethereum started the DAO, and somebody who knew the project hacked it, and all of that 60 million, it was like a big blotchy bad stain on the whole cryptocurrency market. The market dropped, everything was really horrible, and somebody made off with $60 million worth of Ethereum. Now they're probably a billionaire, right? All because they had some insider knowledge. There's no regulation, there's no safeguards. It's the wild, wild west, and boom, you know? And then so Ethereum, in their infinite wisdom, Vitalik was like, yeah, let's just rewind time and imagine that never happened, right? And then we'll fork the blockchain, like go back and write the code so that everything that happened after this point in time old chain, and those coins then become worthless. And that's what's called Ethereum Classic. If you're wondering why there's a couple different Ethereums, that's called Ethereum Classic. And then now you could trade in for a period of time, you could trade in your Ethereum Classic for the new Ethereum. But of course, the hacker wouldn't, because that's how they would get got, right? So what they did is they forked it, and there was a general consensus amongst the population that this would be a good thing to do, and it's worked out. But it illustrates the point that you could just go back in time, erase the fork, basically erase the fork and create a whole new ecosystem. So again, how decentralized is it? Now, it may sound like I'm poo-pooing the whole industry, and if anybody who doesn't like the industry got a hold of this, they would have like a whole lot of ammo for their attacks. But thinks this deeply about these industries or what they're taking part in, they just want to make a whole bunch of money. So to that end, this is now how you can do that. When you find a project, and I'm realizing there's a lot more to talk about than this time is giving us, because I could go into NFTs and just how ridiculous that is and what the real use case for NFTs are. And since that's the hot topic right now, we'll talk about that. But first, when you're looking at projects that are currencies or blockchain related, if their business model is that we want to build this cool thing and everybody's going to believe in us, and then that's why we're going to be valuable, we're going to run. If they don't have a business model where they can be making revenue within the first year, run, right? Or if you're willing to lose the money, put it in, pay attention, buy low, right? Because you can still make a lot of money with these meme coins and rug pulls and all that, but you have to be there quickly. You have to be there on the inside, know about the launch before it launches so that you can be first in line, which goes for all of these projects, even the NFTs. So you can actually make money on just a speculative rug pull, right? I'm not saying you can't. If that's your thing, go ahead and do it. If you're looking for longevity, like I said earlier, if you'd put a couple thousand in the top 10 at the beginning of the year, you'd be a multimillionaire now, right? Because the entire market is hot. So it's almost like you wanted to just put in a couple grand early coins as they come and look at them specifically in different markets. Like there are cryptocurrencies now that are just focused on the metaverse. There are and when they say metaverse, they're not talking about Facebook's metaverse. They're talking about the the totality of all of them, right? All of the virtual reality things. You could go and just create a crypto portfolio in that and would probably do fantastic, right? You could do that with layer 1 protocols like Firon and buy 10 of those and then do fantastic, right? At the early stage. It's a lot like the early days of the stock market. There's a lot going on and a lot of potential profits, right? But you also have to think about this like the .com era, where people were like, I'm just going to buy a .com website and I'm going to make a lot of money. And a lot of people did. But then there was the crash, right? And then there's only going to be a few remaining corporations that are going to weather that crash. Because when the price of all of these things go, and if they keep their profits or their operating budget in those things, then they get wiped out, right? So if you have the kind of relationship or can ask them questions and they respond to you, that's a good sign. If you're thinking about investing in HBAR or whatever, see if you can contact them and ask them personal questions. If you can do that, there's a high degree of probability that they are who they say that they are and are doing what they intend to do. If they're anonymous and aren't doing that sort of thing, then be aware of that. I'm just going to mute you guys, sorry. And then so there's a lot of really great opportunity out there, and some of the things that I'm very excited about are the level 1 protocols, because that's where the major battle is going to be when it comes to the collapse of the cryptocurrency market or whatever. Whoever's most institutionalized there might be a good bet, right? In terms of metaverse, this is like the hot subject, and NFTs are like the hot subject right now. And so there's money to be made there, because wherever there's hype, right, that's money is the physical, or in this case digital, exemplification of energy and attention, right, at a very cosmic metaphysical level. I had many talks with Bernard about this. Like, currency is actually what creates sovereignty or group identity. If we're all trading energy in the same manner or in the same mechanism, then we have a commonality, right? That's why he created the euro, to unite people. it got messed up, and there's a lot of discussions we could have about that, but that's not what this purpose is. But the idea that we create a common identity around a value, trading value, is huge. And that's why we have created, or I have created Firon, is to be able to say, this is a value-driven economy, meaning we want to see a healthy planet. We want to see healthy humans. We want to see an ecosystem that's balanced. We don't want to turn into little gray aliens. We want to turn into magnificent, beautiful, complete humans with very long lifespans and very deep and profound means of creating meaning with one another. And to that end, we only work with corporations that are good, that are treating the environment well, that treat humans well, that decentralize governance and really give humanity an option at self-determination and autonomy. If you're coming in the cryptocurrency market for the first time, you need to understand that it is not as decentralized as everybody says. It's very speculative. There are no regulations, and that's a good thing to some degree, because you can create a huge innovation and leaps in our development without the restraints of high regulatory environments. And it's also a bad thing because then you have bad actors, but that gives you an opportunity to become more intelligent, more aware, and more inquisitive into what you're actually putting your time and attention and money into, right? The buyer beware is real. So you have to look into these projects and really take your own future and your generational wealth into consideration, and plan and think and strategize and look and examine, because there is a lot of money to be made. There has been no bigger time in history than right now to create true generational wealth in your lineage than right now. Bitcoin is the most valuable asset on the planet. Leaps and bounds. There is nothing else that you can invest in that will give you the same amount of returns as crypto, as Bitcoin, with the highest returns. However, that being said, with all the things that I've said prior, you have to come in with your eyes completely wide open. So I'm going to go into NFTs real quick, and then we'll open up to questions and answers. If you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand in here, and I'll start going down the list as that becomes the time. So with regards to NFTs, everybody will own an NFT at some point, not a decimal square little picture that's ridiculous, but you will have an NFT as your ID, okay, where you can input data, remove data, change data, and watch the chain of custody. Everybody will have, I don't know if you'll see it in your lifetime, but NFT kind of passports, right? Property will become NFT'd as titles for land. There will be an NFT representative for nearly all things. Deeds of title that need a deed, you'll see that be NFTs. One of the things that Firon is doing is creating NFTs, and it's not as sexy as JPEGs. It's literally NFTs for titles for land, NFTs for permits, for counties to measure who needs a permit to build what, right? We can facilitate that on our blockchain with NFTs that can maintain a chain of custody, and all of, for instance, there is a municipality nearby that has a bunch of tiny municipalities in it, a county that has a bunch of cities in it. Each of those cities uses a different software to do their licensing and permitting. I'd say, what does that matter? Well, the county needs to keep track of all of that, and they're having a bastard of a time trying to do so, because it's all these different data sets or different companies, and they're trying to aggregate it into one thing, and it's a ridiculous amount of pasta sauce code that it's really challenging. Whereas we come in with a solution, we say, all of your employees can use it from this app, this phone, they can do it from anywhere, and it will standardize all of the NFT, all of the permits in your county. And they love this idea, right? And it's free, and we make money on the transactions, and we can then do payroll for their county employees. We can then do HR, exams for each of their, there are so many things that we can do. And this is the final crux of it. NFTs they're getting everybody into the crypto world because, it's like collector's items, right? But it's also the market for collector's items, and it's really just data. So the fact that there are these collector's items, digital pieces of, code that are worth hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, is ridiculous. But the purpose that it serves is to get everybody excited, because NFTs will become a boring standard use case in the world. And so companies like Firon, which build the infrastructure around economies and community management and community decisions, these are the kind of level 1 projects that you want to look for. And NFTs are very exciting because they're ways for people to raise money. And I was just telling, we had a guest over just a few moments ago, and cryptocurrency starts, and then you have companies issuing currencies, which are really securities, and the SEC goes after them, right? In fact, they threatened to come after me in 2014 because what we're selling is clearly a securities, but there was no regulatory framework for us to do that then. And I didn't want to go to Club Fed. So I was like, I'm going to do this right. And now we've got the right protocol and the right filing procedures. Thanks to what happened with Binance, we know what to do. And so, it's the tortoise and the hare in terms of my involvement in the space. I've wanted to do everything legal, and I've wanted to do everything right, so that we have longevity in the space and we survive what's coming in terms of the the kind of bubble that's going to happen. So somebody just asked in the chat, investment opportunities into Firon. James, oh, sorry, that was direct. Yes. So if you are an accredited investor or part of the Firon community and have been using the app, come speak to me directly. We can definitely help you out there. But this isn't a Firon pitch. This is like, I want to give as much value as I can to everybody in terms. I'm just assuming everybody here is beginners to crypto and wants to take part in the space. And I've been giving a lot of sobering, really clear information on what kind of market this is and what kind of opportunities there are. So somebody in the chat asks, where does one go and how does one begin research and to discover the Legitcoin projects? Okay, so there are websites, there are YouTubes, how to create a scam coin. Okay, go look those up, how to find a scam coin, how to just, go to YouTube and do some research. Like, how do I know this coin is not a scam? And I guarantee you there's content, valuable and helpful content on how to find coins and legit coins. But as a general protocol, it's like what I was saying earlier, is like, go see if their founders, developers, and CEOs doxed, if everybody knows who they are. If they do, then it's probably not a scam. How to determine if it's a valuable project, how if it's going to have longevity. And to some degree, this doesn't even really matter. Like when people look at stocks, let me just give you a sobering view on everything from stocks to crypto, okay? You can say that you look at the KPIs of something like Southwest Airlines or United Airlines, right? And this is our quarterly earning report. So people are like, this is doing good. I'll put money into that. I trust it. But if they have one incident where they skewer a rabbit or make a rabbit sit in the cage and some lady on the plane makes a big stink about it, then all of a sudden, everybody's like, F United Airlines. And this happened, right? There was a bunny incident or something, and everybody's like, F United Airlines. They treated their customer poorly. The stock tanked. So is it really KPIs? It's market sentiment. With cryptocurrency, it's 100% market sentiment, no matter what anybody tells you. They could be doing these great things. Everybody's like, doing great things. So they believe in it more, and that creates the market sentiment. Or somebody could have a bad rumor, and everybody's like, oh, screw that. We're selling it off. And then the price goes down. And it has nothing to do with their KPIs or their performance. It has everything to do with market sentiment. In the stock market, that market sentiment is slower. We watched what happened with AMC. And everybody coming together and being like, F you, institutionalized investment firms, we're going to pump this stock because we're going to short squeeze you or whatever they did. That happens, and that's market sentiment. And if the market were fair, screwed all of these investment firms, but the market's not fair. It's centralized and controlled, right? Now in the cryptocurrency market, that same thing can happen, but faster. Right? Because there is no brakes on it. There is no regulation on it. It's just wild, wild west to a lot of degrees. So if a bunch of people got together and said that they're going to pump a coin, which happens, when you see a coin rise in price for no good reason, it's a bunch of people getting together with a lot of money saying, we're going to pump this project up. And then when we get it to the top, we're going to sell it and then drop it back down. But what ends up happening is you'll see the price go whoop, and then drop, but it will never usually drop below the price that it came up at. It'll come up halfway. So if it starts at a dollar, goes to 100, and then drops back down, it'll probably drop to 20, So you have these huge highs that'll go up to 100 and then drop 20. So they'll gain 100%, lose 80%. You're still making money. So you get to get used to these big ups and downs without so much fear and terror, right? Crypto.co marketing budget is insane. Where is their long-term value? I don't know specifically on that project. I'm not going to speak to anything specific in this talk, although I've mentioned Ethereum. It's just for illustrative purposes. A lot of blockchain books out there. Is there one or two books you would recommend to help me get my head around what the future will look like with NFT and blockchain technology? Andreas Antonopoulos, he was one of the original guys. Same time, he came up at the same time I did, and he really understands this market in and out. So I would recommend anything that he puts out. In terms of other people, like I trust him because I know him personally, and we came up at the same time and had the same means and purposes for this and visualization. Aragon or DAO Stack to launch a DAO. So where would I recommend to launch a DAO? Honestly, Firon, I don't trust any of the other ones because they don't have the safeguards in place and or the same conceptual understanding of the entire market and what it means for humanity. Says I cut off. I would only go with Firon, to be honest with you. But I have some people raising hands. I love the questions in the chat. This is great. Sig, if you would go ahead and unmute yourself and give us your question, please.
Yeah, so hopefully you guys can hear me. It's similar to what Kate asked. She wanted to know more about setting up a coin. Same thing for me. Like I've got an idea to for a labor-based crypto coin. Kind of where do I start to start learning how to do the coding or whatnot that's necessary for that stuff?
That's a great question. Thank you so much for being here and for asking. So currently HBAR is one of the layer 1 protocols that is probably the only one I'd recommend to launching a coin or launching a DAO stack, besides Firon, obviously. With Firon, you're going to have a lot more quality control, a lot more say in how it goes. But you know, these layer 1 protocols are out there giving everybody an opportunity to create their own DAOs or whatever. And their play is that they'll get enough institutional buy-in that will allow them to survive the coming collapse. And if you're long-term, you know, I'd say HBAR looking really good out of all of them, even Solana. And that's only happened in the past couple of days, literally, because of they had more traffic and more user transactions than any other one in like a real quick like window. And that's the other thing about the crypto space is it's so quick. Like a couple months ago, we were going to launch Fire Token on Binance, and that was before the lawsuit, and that impacts the whole effing chain, right? So like, that's my point here, is that the real players are building their own code, building their own coin and their own code, and owning the system themselves. There's some people on this call who are literally clients for us that are doing that, right? We have a water token, a water credits, like carbon credits, a company with a lot of influence and ability in that space. And they are looking at Firon because we have quality control. We're not just going to allow anybody to create anything. And that's the point here, is that with a permission-based system where we can do KYC and all of these things, a lot of people are very much against that, but they don't understand where they sit in the whole economy and what's going on globally. You need to have a permissions-based system, but you need to be able to have a permission-based system that maintains the privacy of those that are being permitted, right? And that's what we do really well. Now, to answer your question, HBAR is something to look at. Although I would also say, like, stick around because we got some things to do together, I think. This was covered. When are we going to be able to invest in Firon? Thanks, Owner's iPhone. This is not a pitch for that. If you want to do that, come join us on our Telegram. Get the app and talk to me on the app. We have reward systems for early app users, like our community, to get the coins. And if you're an accredited investor, come speak to me. You know, we've got paperwork for you. You can get involved. There will be a public launch in February. We're looking at February. It keeps getting pushed back based upon workflow and reality. But it's going to be pretty exciting 2022. That's much as I can say about that. Does anybody else have any questions? I see Tara. Hey, Tara.
Hey there, Mr. X. Great to see you.
Good to see you too. I'll hear your voice. Oh, we need to connect. Like you had some really good plans for the quests. We need to do that, and I don't have enough time to manage it. So.
Okay, well, it's blowing up. So I'm
Nice.
part of a development team. We're calling ourselves the Community Natural Law Group. We are helping families and businesses restructure themselves out of the public domain into the private.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay? Is it working out all right?
Yeah. No, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. So, and we're using technology, you know, like private membership associations, trusts, endowments, land patents. And we've been dancing around the cryptocurrency a little bit, but none of us are really that confident or that savvy. And with crypto, and then another piece is I'm also working in securities industry, and we've been playing with like, how can we mimic the best parts of the securities industry and bring it into this whole natural law group that we're working with?
Right.
I want to bring cryptocurrency to the conversation. I really don't know how or where to begin with that.
Okay, so you want to create a vitality for your group, and you want to build it sounds like you want a DAO, but with a coin.
Yeah, and I want this to be duplicatable. We're consulting, so we're building our own core group, yes, but also we want to teach people through IP, whatever suits them best. But I want to bring all of these opportunities and models to them that's really duplicatable and not so, you know, over everyone's head. And I know in my heart, especially because I know you and I have so much respect for you, that there is some really good, there's some great benefit to crypto, but I just want to make sure that we sort of sidestep any beastly agenda, if you catch my drift.
Yeah. No, that's great. And so this whole talk came out because there's a conscious collective on WhatsApp, conscious crypto community, and they asked me to do a talk, and I said I would. And so there's a lot of people in here from there and from around the networks, right? And you're literally speaking our crack-a-lackin language. Like, that's why Firon was started, is how to galvanize, create vitality around specific initiatives and do them within the context of the global initiative to become more conscious and, you know, of the light, for lack of a better term, right? To serve goodness and beauty and truth and honor, and not the system of bestial, you know, nepotism and economic harvesting, right? So foundations of the question, totally get. The execution is where it becomes like, okay, how do we do it? You can go onto HBAR or Ethereum or to Solana or to Cardano and create a coin, and depending upon which one you go into, they have specific functions now and capabilities that they can code into the coin. You can hire a coding team. You know, it takes some doing. At the very least, like, anybody can go make a scam coin. There are sites where you can go and do that on Ethereum or Binance even. But
well, we don't have a whole lot of capital to start with, because I mean we're basically crowdsourcing.
And that's why Firon was created, was for organizations like yourselves and initiatives like yourselves. And the idea in Firon is that as we process everybody's transactions from their cryptocurrency card wallet, right? We process the transactions, we put that into a pool, and then we all vote on where to distribute that, how to distribute it, what projects to fund. And then you do like a Kickstarter style project where you come with your community film and you say, this is our mission, this is what we want to do. We're asking for 10 grand or whatever. And we can start our own coin and build economic vitality for the ecosystem, blah, blah, blah. And then we say, yes, cool, everybody loves it, go, right? And then we build in smart contracts to make sure that it's like you tithe, you know, 10% of your ongoing, and this gets us around Sharia law and like all kinds. It like literally is a very elegant and beautiful system, if I'm going to toot my own horn here. So if you can wait, you know, a couple months, like, we got you. If you need to move now, I recommend, you know, looking into these layer 1 protocols. And you can even just test it out in that way. And then when Firon's on board, you know, come and we can trade you out or do something. But HBAR is something to look into. You'd need to do some examination of yourself, for yourself or any of your coding adepts into how to do that, and figure out your token economics. I'd be happy to help kind of point you in the right direction when it comes time. Ultimately, you have to think about your market and economy. Where is this coin going to be useful? What is it going to be useful for? What can I trade it in for? Can we trade it in for real goods? Can we trade it in for services? You have to think about economies from like a high level. And then for a coin to be successful, it needs to be useful somewhere. You can be just a purely speculative instrument but even then it's useful for getting distributions or something. You need to think about where it can be spent, and can you onboard those businesses or those vendors to start accepting it. You have to get people to value and buy into your vision at like a grounded economic level, right?
Yeah, and we have a whole Freedom Cell community here too that could really get into it.
John, and I want to empower his program, and he might just be the type that's like, F you, I'm going to do it myself, and like, cool. But I want to at least make it interoperable in our ecosystem. Like what Firon will eventually be is a place for all of the quality projects to live and be protected, right?
Okay, so it sounds like this conversation needs to bleed on into email or something. I'll catch up with you another time.
Can you give me your phone number? Not necessarily now, but at some point, and maybe on the DMs, and then like let's have an actual call.
Okay, yeah, check your DMs.
Because let me see if I actually have it.
It's right there with my Telegram identity. I have it on my profile. I haven't hidden my phone number.
Oh, okay, it's on the Telegram.
Yeah. And we're building a summit. We're putting together a summit out here in Oregon in February. We're handpicking some of the experts in each of those technologies that I mentioned. We have someone in PMAs. We have someone in land patents. I'm shopping for someone with trust. It'd be great if we could zoom in some sort of expert on cryptocurrency. I don't know. Do you have any ideas?
I'll do it. Yeah. What's your handle? Tara Donahue?
I changed it. I'm now Farah Shah, Farasha.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, so I'll touch base with you about the summit.
I just gave you my cell phone number. You can contact me. Okay. Rusty has thanks, Tara. Love you. All right. Rusty has a question. Let's talk about XRP, especially as it appears to be the choice crypto of Davos West. Do you think the incoming ISF 2022 is the likeliest de facto future fintech system? If so, how can we walk tightrope, whether to leverage the karma that we don't want and send energy to, or stay on it? Great question. Since the very inception of this whole market, I've been saying XRP is a great investment. And everybody's been really pissed off at me because I'm saying that, because ideologically, they are against the literal purpose of the whole crypto space, right? But pragmatically, they are literally the only ones that have been offering a true solution. Even them, though themselves, it's not the best solution for the countries or the governments. But they have gotten so much of the market high in banking and settlements that they are like now the de facto SWIFT. They've won. They have already won. Now, whether that winning passes on to all of you, us, whatever, through XRP, that has yet to be seen. I know the lawsuit that they are facing, that they're still undergoing, is pretty much a joke by the SEC. And the reason why it happened, and I'll tell you this because I know, the guy who was working for the SEC on the last day of his tenure, he lawsuit down and was like, peace out. He was done because he did that because he's on the board of a couple of Chinese companies who have direct interest in making sure that the Chinese yuan, the digital yuan, is the reserve digital currency of the future. Okay, read into that what you will. They put a lawsuit to slow down the development in the West. I know, however, that there are 3 different projects in the United States, 3 different solutions that the United States government or Fed is trying to implement to figure out which one is going to be the digital currency of the future. Right now, XRP Ripple is the one that looks like the provider because it's the only one that's IS 20022 compliant. Do we know about all of them? No. There's tons of projects that do not do any publicity. A lot is going on behind the scenes, right? And things that will come out into the market and stuff later. That being said, to this point that you just brought up, Rusty, scared of a backdoor deal, Ripple has been known to dump their coins onto the market, totally demolishing the price because they don't care, because they needed working capital. A centralized corporation can do, because you're not represented. So you're swimming amongst sharks and fishes and people that are totally self-interested. And in the beginning days of crypto, some people were like, well, you can count on enlightened self-interest, and that's how you can navigate. It's like, it's all bullshit to excuse predatory capitalism, right? So say XRP is bad? No, I'm going to say that XRP is centralized, and they are facilitating the centralized banks of the world to be able to become more efficient harvesting and predating upon everybody while providing a service, right? So if you want to support that, that's up to you, you know, spiritually, ecumenically, I don't care. You have to weigh that pragmatically. Do you want to make some money? Because I think XRP is going to go through the roof. You know, once people hear, again, it's market sentiment. Once people hear that, oh, they're going to be used by the Federal Reserve, like, we'll just start dumping because they believe, and then the price will go up. Does it match or meet the KPIs? Not really. Like I mentioned earlier, everything is based on market sentiment. That being said, it makes sense to have in your portfolio. You know, like if you're going to, like, it's like gambling in a sense. Right? Stock market is gambling. It's like going to the roulette table and putting a bunch of coins all over because, you know, the chances are increased that you make some money on something. It's what VCs do. They invest in 20 companies knowing that one of them will win, pay for all the other 20 investments. It's literally like a numbers game, right? So it sounds like gold rigging all over again. Yeah, all of these systems will do that, right? Becomes gamed at some point. Firon is built and architected to allow the time for it to become gamed to be 1,000 years. So regarding author and crypto pioneer you mentioned earlier, Andreas, Andreas, Antonopoulos, ANT. I think Antonopoulos, Andreas Antonopoulos. Yeah, thank you for spelling it, Rusty. Okay, so that's in the chat. I think there was somebody else with a raised hand. iPhone, you have your hand raised. If you would unmute yourself and give me your question. And if anybody has any other questions, raise your hand now because we're going to wrap this up. Go ahead, iPhone. Hear you yet? You are unmuted, but I do not hear you. Hello, hello? I am not hearing anything. iPhone? Oh, looks like they left. Oh, I hear something. Oh.
Hello?
iPhone, yes. Tell us your name and what your question is.
Hey, actually, it's Jeffrey. I had a heck of a time with the mute button.
What's up, Jeff? How you been?
Oh, pretty good. Lots of snow accumulating. It's pretty fun. I think it's going to be a snowy Christmas up here, unsurprisingly. So I just wanted to say I thought I love this whole thing. I thought the mine analogy was really good. That was really useful to think about it in terms of like a remote key kind of thing. I was wondering anything you wanted to mention about private wallets, because I don't really get those too well yet. If you're going to do like maybe a 102, like a second level course or something, I'd love to tune into something like this again. And then I was wondering, with the comment on freedom cells, if there'd be a way, because we're kind of getting involved in that type of community, if there's a way to like set up a system like a DAO, but like within a small community where you don't really have it online, you're like in an intranet, I guess, where it's like your own private, like community currency, that kind of thing.
You could, yeah. So what Firon will do is you'll be online, but you'll without getting too deep into it, essentially your own little governance system where it's just a set of rules and architecture that you use the app to do. So you don't have to, you can sit in circle and have like, you know, come to Jesus moments with each other, and that's cool, but it's to help make decisions more efficient. And that's really all it is. And then for currency to have a mechanism by which to trade by easily and create value that measures and metrics your GDP or the health of your ecosystem, right? We'll get into that in Firon, that we'll have like specific trainings around that. But in terms of a DAO for a community that doesn't touch the rest of the world, really what do you need? You need the ability to create a set of rules by which to make decisions. That's literally all it's really good for at that level, at that small of a level. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I was just thinking as far as if the grid was down type of situation and looking at ways of resilience.
If the grid goes down, you're gonna have a lot more issues than how you make decisions. It's gonna, for a lot of people, it's gonna revert to tribalism and some of the basic shit that has made humans work for this long. And hopefully we don't go into that desperate of a situation.
Yeah, if we do, hopefully we all remain moral, which would be a positive change.
It would be the last thing people would do. Yeah, I hope
true.
so.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks.
Thanks for being here. Flow State, Miss Dashima, I believe. Unmute yourself and give us your question. And really honored that you're here and help.
You hear me?
Just a real quick introduction to everybody. This is Dashima Kona Gordon, and she has touched millions of people's lives about the flow state, about yoga, about becoming more spiritual and living happily and healthily. And she was the one who put the Conscious Crypto Collective together on WhatsApp. So if you want to be a part of that, let her know in the chat and she'll add you to that.
Yep.
Hi, Dash.
Hi, good to see you.
And also one of my dearest friends for forever and ever.
I've known Xavier for 16 or 15 years, back when he had the long hair, before he had 4 kids. But one thing that I'll say is that I actually knew back in the day, even 15 years ago, we were still talking about this. We talked about this before it existed, and even talked about building a community in Costa Rica, because everything that we predicted actually came to happen, which is really interesting. And now it's all happening. So I'm really excited to see, at least that we were visionary on that side. We could see what was coming. But one of the things that I thought would be useful to talk about just in this chat a little bit is the Web3, because I feel like when I talk to people about that, I was talking to a guy the other day about it, and he was just so surprised to hear that that was even something that was coming. And you did mention one thing about, if this is what I think you said. You said the only way for crypto or anything to go down would be if the entire internet, or if the electricity of the world or all of that just went down. So that's the only way it could actually go down, right? In terms of the safety of the chain itself is secure unless the internet completely, right? But then Web3, can you speak about Web3? Because I'm super excited. Some of my friends that have millions of fans and stuff, we've been talking about creating our own spiritual metaverse. And I feel like Web3 is this unique, like you talk about the Wild Wild West, a frontier that's coming, that's not really available yet, but that it is because of blockchain, but that's an opportunity for people to what the future holds for everything with it that you've been talking about.
So all right, good. Thank you for that question. Web3 is essentially the nexus between the current state of the internet, blockchain, and then virtual reality, which people are calling the metaverse, which is a misnomer, and it's a real nice trick that Zuckerberg pulled by naming his company the Metaverse, or Meta, because now it's kind of like Band-Aid. Everybody's going to be talking about the metaverse, which is really a number of different virtual reality spaces. That's the metaverse, right? That's Web3. Web3 is coming, and that will be where you have an online persona or avatar with a wallet system, a multi-wallet system, to hold all of your different permission-based tokens or NFTs, where to get into a specific room, you have to have a specific NFT or a specific token. Now, what that does is it gives us, like, and I would caution strongly against a completely immersive virtual reality metaverse. There's a lot of reasons to be very wary of that. Going back thousands of years that it's been described already in prophecy and all kinds of things. That being said, Ready Player One is already a reality. There's like a number of different projects. Earth 2. There was another one that I played for a little bit that was very, very amazing, where people were getting married and having concerts in it. So there's already these metaverses existing where, and this is kind of where cryptocurrency came from, right? World of Warcraft, you could skin your characters and different things, and people created digital currencies for that they would then trade, and you could get real money for those digital currencies, because now it's in every game app in the App Store. You can buy their game specific digital currency to get new skins, and that's how they're extracting real world value into this digital economy. Web 3 is the combination of those online games with your real character, your real digital persona online. Like, you have your own wallet system, permission-based tokens. You can go into a virtual store and buy virtual goods that can either then be just used virtually or represent real things in the real world. So this whole Web3 is just another cute name for all of this new functionality. I don't know if I want to tell you all, but I'll give you a hint. We actually have the ability to create a new internet that is already existent, that doesn't need infrastructure, right? Like some real cutting edge stuff. So there's so much shifting in the market that, again, some things that are just open and some things that are not, that allow us to really help shape what the market looks like. So Web3, to answer your question very clearly and specifically, is the convergence of crypto and virtual reality touching the real world and the market. So if you're an online business, it would make, and you rely on traffic, it would make sense to be where the traffic is. And I would look at what companies have the most traffic. Second Life, that was the name of it. There's a lot of really cool things to be doing in these virtual reality worlds. People are hosting concerts and all kinds of stuff. And if you're the first or one of the first there in an industry like yours, then it might be worthwhile, right, to invest some of your time and attention into it. So that's what I'm going to say about that. Anybody else? Otherwise, we're going to wrap this up. We're 10 minutes over. I hope everybody's gotten some value out of this, that it was worth your time and that you learned something new about crypto. I'm hoping that you did, because some of the things that I've said here are literally things that I've said only in meetings and or on specific talks at crypto conventions. And all of those were just part. I've sort of brought it all together in this one. And it gives a kind of sobering but real perspective on the industry. So if that was helpful for you, if you appreciated that, come do check us out, phiron.com, PHIREON. Get the app, hit me up on it. And otherwise, I'm looking at the chat to make sure I didn't get any questions answered. If I haven't answered any of your questions, right now is the time to hit me up. All right. God bless. Go forth and prosper. And see you around. Yes, this is recorded. This is live on YouTube at phiron.com's YouTube. So if you go to phiron.com, you'll see our